My name is Jana. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to introduce Rachel Kolman to you tonight. How many of you already know Rachel? Yeah, I thought so. All right. All right, then. We all know that Rachel was from here. We all know that Rachel went to Seattle. She got nostalgic. She thought it would be lovely to come back for a summer in Florida. Forgetting just how freaking hot it can be here. So she tells me she's never been so hot in her life. And yeah, it's been a wake-up call. But that's all right. She knew what she's getting into, right? Yeah. So we are glad to have Rachel with us tonight. She says she's been social gallivanting a lot, which we're not opposed to that, as long as you get your work done. So this is why we have tonight, so that we can figure out exactly if she's been working hard enough or not. But the good news is we don't kind of get the before and after, so we don't get what she started reading and then what she's done now. So, we just have to believe that she did it while she was here. So she'll be leaving us soon and going back to 80-degree weather in Seattle and with a new appreciation, which is awesome. Make you grateful. So we are looking forward to hearing what you've been doing in the house and what you've written in the house. And so come on up and share with us.
Yeah. Thank you guys for being here tonight. This is awesome. It is really fun to see so many familiar faces here as the Kerouac resident and just all of your supportive faces coming out to hear me read. So what I've been working on here is an essay collection that was mostly drafted before I came here, but I really didn't understand exactly how they all fit together or kind of what my voice was. So just trying to find out that through line. And in putting together what I'm going to read tonight, I kind of started seeing a little bit more of some themes of what I'm writing about. Maybe you all will see that too as you listen. So I've got 4 short essays for you tonight. Promise, not too bad. I timed myself earlier. And so I'll just get started. The first one is called The Escape Plan. Growing up in small Gulf Coast town in Florida, I often wondered how I would escape it to pursue my great unknown adventure. My idea of escape came to me in small visualizations. I saw myself as a sophisticated adult in a downtown apartment in a posh city, picking up friends for lunch or shopping. The visual sharpened with age. I imagined myself thin and chic, sporting a great haircut. My car would be a mess because I was so busy running errands for my friends. I had a stack of CDs you could rifle through and pick out your choice. We'd drive off to wherever we were going, but it was anywhere but here. I craved the carefree nature of this fantasy of adult life. I couldn't wait for this to be my life. How could I make this my life? The only way I knew how to escape my fate in small-town Florida was similar to many other poor but smart kids growing up in the 90s, tricking the government into giving me lots of Pell Grant money and bright future scholarships to attend college. I could run far away as long as I technically remained in-state for the tuition. So at 18, I fled 4 hours north from my hometown to Tallahassee, to Florida State University. As far as escapes go, mine is really not that thrilling. Unlike my mother's escape, I had not been abandoned by my birth mother. I had not needed to leave an abusive husband with 4 young children. But my own version of escape was possible because of hers. My life could be a series of freedoms and explorations of my choosing. So, the summer after high school graduation, I spent hours looking at the FSU course catalog in the teen computer lab at the YMCA while my mom worked her shift at the front desk. When I needed personal information for the FAFSA forms, I walked out and asked my mother in front of everyone information like her annual income and her social security number. Even through all of these questions and applications, my mother still never showed any real enthusiasm that I was accepted to and seemingly going off to college. In her mind, my plan was a concept, a draft. It wasn't until I told her I needed her to drive me to orientation that she considered I'd actually leave. "You're not going all the way up to Tallahassee," she told me one night as I showed her the orientation paperwork in the kitchen. "That's too far away. You're not going. Why do you need to go there?" She accused me of choosing this school on purpose to get away from her. It seemed an idea out of nowhere. I wasn't a rebellious teen. Sure, I was smart-mouthed, but I did the things I was supposed to do when she told me to do them. Of course, I never really explained to my mother my general unease of living in this town and how my life needed to be more than this place. I needed to make true the vision I created for my life. That meant leaving this town in the dust. I thought my mother saw it this way too. Obviously, no one wanted to live here, which now I can see must have been pretty insulting. But beyond that, perhaps she assumed I couldn't live on my own. After all, I never owned a car or had a real job. My life revolved around color guard, drawing pictures of celebrities, recording songs off the radio, and coming up with dance routines, reading Harlequin romance novels, and writing an epic 700-page NSYNC fan fiction. Oh yeah, this was not an adult who could go to college. Perhaps my mother saw that my fantasies held me back from life's realities. I saw my fantasies as what created my vision of reality. It took a lot of talking, determination, planning, and my mom's boyfriend agreeing to chaperone to get me to orientation weekend. Now, I loved that weekend. I loved the brick campus buildings, the meetings and introductions, and all the newness, feeling that Tallahassee was a real city. It wasn't until the end of that weekend my mother finally conceded and admitted she felt okay about me going to school there. I think she had to see it for herself, to see that I would be taken care of by new other adults. After orientation, I worked to make this vision of my life come true, which meant finding a place to live. I had missed the deadline to apply for dorms, so I had to apartment hunt, calling numbers on flyers I picked up during orientation, scheduling tours I didn't know how I'd make. I didn't have a car. My mother rarely let me practice, so I figured I have to move in somewhere sight unseen. I made a list of money I would need each month, thought about a job I could get. This seemed like a lot. How was I going to transition from a bus-riding band camp kid to an adult living on her own? I hadn't done a single thing to prepare myself for that kind of shift overnight, and it looked like I had myself to rely on. My escape began to feel like a chore. I was realizing that my plan was an outline. I hadn't filled in dark lines, hadn't answered necessary questions. Was my idea better as a fantasy? Up until that point in my life, my idea of escape was only positive. It was good to lose yourself in your hobbies and fantastical visions of the future. But recently I found a theory that all methods of escape lie somewhere between positive self-expansion escape and negative self-suppression escape. The pinnacle of positive escape is flow, the state in which people are so involved in an activity that nothing seems to matter. The opposite of this is suppression through activities that numb us. The paradox is that both positive and negative escape share commonality: to reduce self-awareness. Escape is so addicting because we get to leave behind the self. But when we return, the problem, whatever it was, persists. So for my college housing problem, I only solved it once I stopped fantasizing about how great my apartment might be and looked the problem dead in the face. I had been waitlisted for a scholarship housing opportunity, and with fall quickly approaching, I couldn't wait any longer. Panic set in and forced me to be present, to make a plan. I emailed the head of the scholarship housing program detailing all the reasons I had to live there. She wrote me back the next day and offered me a spot. Not to say that writing a pleading, desperate email like I did should pay off. I just got to the point where I had no choice but to confront the reality of the situation, and I got lucky. Move-in weekend arrived, and the head resident moved me in, a senior named Katie, who was in every way the depiction of the fun, adventurous woman that I wanted to be one day. She told me there were 6 freshman girls in the house. The other 10 residents were returning and already knew one another and would probably move in later in the week. In my enthusiasm, I moved in 7 whole days early. I'd gone to the bookstore and found out where my classes were, so there was nothing to do but wait. My room was at the end of the hallway, next to a door that led in and out of the parking lot, so I always heard everyone coming and going. I listened for their voices like feeling for a hot door, testing to see if the threat spread to my part of the hallway. If the door was hot, meaning lots of talk, I stayed in my room and played video games. My mom let me bring an old TV and a PlayStation, so I disappeared into Gran Turismo, Tomb Raider, Crash Bandicoot, and Tony Hawk. I embraced the distraction and escape they provided. But if the door was cool and quiet, I braced myself and inched it open and slid out. If I did see anyone, I just said, "Hey," and kept walking. It felt awkward even for me to not do the thing I knew was right, to introduce myself, stop, make small talk, get to know the people I was living with. But I couldn't, I froze. I would slink into the empty kitchen and heat up a pepperoni Hot Pocket, pour a glass of juice, and shuffle back to my room unnoticed. The head resident knocked on my door once or twice during the week to see how I was doing, because she hadn't seen me around the house. She said I was being so quiet. I know, I thought. Without breaking eye contact from the television, I told her I was fine, just hanging in my room. I was learning how easily escape could suppress negative feelings. On the Sunday night before classes began, we had our first house meeting. For the first time, I saw so many of the girls that I only heard voices of in passing. The 16 of us sat in a semicircle around the living room, some on the couch, some on the dining room chairs, some even sprawled effortlessly on the floor. Many of the other freshman girls seemed nervous too, not talking as much, sitting on their hands. As the night unfolded, we shared stories of where we came from and our majors, and I relaxed, even considered the girls around me, how we might actually be friends soon. In their polite, round faces, I saw the girls who would walk me to class the next morning, girls who I would watch Top Model with on Mondays and study with late night, girls I would travel the state with for beach trips and concerts, girls who would teach me not to shrink away and escape when things felt difficult. Looking back on those early days of feeling trapped in my bedroom, I can see how I was deceived in thinking that leaving my hometown for college was going to be so easy and fun. How surprised I was that it required effort and being a little uncomfortable. This is not to say I adapted amazingly after that opening meeting to college life. I still found plenty of other ways to escape. I clung to my roommates and I didn't make a lot of new friends. I bought a laptop and spent many of my days in forums and blogs, obsessing over musicians. I read and wrote and posted more fanfic. Once 21, I drank abundantly at parties and bars and made out with boys who showed me attention. I found how alluring feelings of a desire could be, and I followed their lead. Of course, there's nothing wrong with following desire in short doses, but for a lot of my 20s, my penchant for fun the night before led to a dreary next day, and I would escape whatever problem was facing me there. I didn't learn the real secret until later, that I have to accept life and deal with it as it comes, and not spend so much time wistfully wishing for it to be different. I wonder how much of my life I delayed trying to reduce that self-awareness. Now I am learning to meet myself for who I am. Recognition, then, becomes the opposite of escape. Okay, so that's the first one. So on the same kind of theme of escape and getting on the road. This next one is called The Road Trip. It's told in second person, and it's told as a collage essay, so it's a bunch of vignettes collected together. Okay, number 1. Your first memory of a road trip is from when you are 4 years old, leaving Chicago in the middle of the night with your mother and 3 siblings. Your mother drives a dingy white Toyota from Illinois to Florida in one day. The trip is remembered as a blur of cityscapes as you try to sleep in the back seat, waking up as you pull into your grandmother's driveway in a sleepy retirement town in Florida. You don't remember the car stopping once. Where are the rest stops and gas station bathrooms? Where are the Happy Meal boxes and coloring books and crushed soda cans? They must have been there, but not in the memory of road tripping you carry with you. Instead, you remember counting the flashing lights of streetlights out the window every 4 seconds as you lay down in the back, wondering if this drive meant you would be in Florida now for good, wondering when you'd see your dad again. The darkness in between those flashes of lights makes you feel alone, reminds you of the growing distance from your home with each second, of what you can no longer see. 2. The next road trip you remember is when you're 8 or 9, when your mom starts another long drive to a church revival in St. Louis. She begins the drive in the middle of the night again, so you can all arrive in St. Louis by the morning. You have no idea anything about the trip except you have to go to this church revival. Perhaps your mother doesn't know the plan either, as somewhere around Atlanta, she turns the car around and you head back to that sleepy town in Florida. The final road trip with your mother is during your senior year of high school, reversing the first trip, back to Chicago to see your family, not your father, that you haven't seen in a decade. This trip feels extra long as you read books to pass the time and stick your head out the window when your mother lights a new cigarette every hour. You resent every pop of the car lighter from its holder, all burning coils to a fresh stick, and there's a brief spark and a sound of crackling fire before it's all smoke. Your chest cavity burns by the time you get to Illinois, a feeling that sticks with you for weeks after. 3. When the time comes to learn to drive yourself, the driver's ed car is broken down. So you fill in worksheets while watching videos about safe driving, never getting behind the wheel yourself. The glow of the TV illuminates the room while a bored teacher flips through her magazine, unaffected by what she is denying you. Your mother never lets you practice with her car either, too paranoid or perhaps too upset that, once again, you're all book smarts and no practical street smarts. Overall, you're not too fussed about it, though. You're going to college soon, living near campus, and you've got a bicycle and a bus. Who needs a car? Since college is 4 hours north, you bum rides from roommates who are headed down south for the holidays. You remember one such ride where the sparkly Christmas lights around everyone's front window or bushes begin to light up. You like looking at these iterations of lights, imagining the cozy lives happening among them. Your mother never did like hanging lights. It drew unnecessary attention to the house, she said. Your other college road trips are for shows, sometimes traveling halfway across the state and back to see a band. Those are always your favorite trips. Your roommates and you all sing loudly in the car, windows down, heart exploding with joy over the chance to see this band that you so coveted at the time, a grin on your lips as you considered what the night might hold. 4. When you graduate years later with a master's degree and a full-time job, you've still left this one detail of your life unexamined, the inability to drive yourself anywhere. Because you keep putting it off, you have to bike 3 miles at 5 a.m. each morning to go to work. You tell yourself you like biking, it's giving you killer legs. It also means you sit at home on many Saturday nights because your adult friends live downtown by the good bars and you live by campus. But you can't go out and pick up a car the way you can pick up a new pair of shoes. You need help. You are afraid to ask for it, ashamed of having been a passenger for so long. So, like the student you are, you pay a driving instructor. If you treat driving like a class, it's not so scary. A redo of the high school experience you never got to have 8 years later. After weeks of lessons and highlighting your printout of the Florida Driver's Handbook, you receive a flawless driving score from a gentle and kind evaluator who doesn't make you parallel park. You almost cry from relief. For weeks after, you car search for hours, Googling common car buying mistakes and best cars for new drivers and scoff at how it's aimed at teenagers. Your final bummed ride is to the dealership, where you buy the first car you like that's in your price range. It's bright blue and has no maintenance issues. It'll be fine. When you take the car keys, let it hit you. The idea that you could get out and go anywhere at a moment's notice if need be. You sit behind the wheel for a few moments first, gathering your courage. Now you have to drive it. Even though you earned it, you still fear having to control it. You check the lights, noticing how everything on your dashboard brightens with one flicker. You love that part, the moment it gets dark enough to put on the headlights and the buttons glow. You get to flip that switch now. 5. After that, you'll drive long hours to visit friends, go to faraway weddings, see your sister's daughter being born. You'll get your first ticket while driving on a highway in a rental car in central Iowa for speeding up to pass a semi-truck. You knew as soon as that state trooper flicked on his lights that he was turning around for you. Those are the lights you never like seeing. You have been in 3 accidents. One was your fault. You were a little drunk. You were glad you did not see the lights of a cop car that time, that it was after midnight and the kids just wanted to go home and settle it in the morning. After that night, you were shocked into repeating that mistake again. You sleep it off in your car now sometimes instead, though you have been woken up by a few taps on your window or peeks of daylight streaking through a parking garage, the sting of contacts glued to your eyes. Perhaps you have indulged in the car's freedom too much. 6. Your cross-country road trip comes in your mid-30s when you drive through 12 states over 5 days and try out a West Coast life. Now, those early years of avoiding the wheel feel miles away. It's incredible to drive over long highways through stretches of prairie, the altitude climbing, the mountains peaking in the distance. How were you ever afraid of such a feeling? At one point during those 45 hours, you think of your first road trip with your mother when you were 4, leaving Chicago, and how she drove 16 hours in one long night. You feel exhausted after 6. You wish to show your mother the land out west, how it rises under your wheels and how it feels to control it yourself, to not be fleeing, but to purposely be choosing to move all this way. How must it feel differently to do this as a choice, not a necessity? Perhaps that's why you stayed away from driving for so long. Someone was always there to take you where you needed to go. It never had to be a choice. Okay, that's the road trip. All right. This is kind of also about escape and getting out of somewhere. But we're going to jump forward in time to 2020. I'm going to take you on a climb up the Eiffel Tower. This one's called La Escalade, which means the climb in French. All right. There are 328 steps up the first floor of the Eiffel Tower. On the first day of 2020, I am climbing all of these steps. I am climbing these steps despite the hangover and fatigue of last night's party, despite the resistance of my boyfriend who has a fear of heights. I am climbing these steps with my partner Nick, who refused to go up with me until the moment we both realized that after you pass through the security scanners at the entrance of the Eiffel, there is no going back. The only way out is up first and then down the other side. We must climb. We climb because we fly home tomorrow from our European vacation, and I didn't want to leave Paris without doing one completely touristy thing. 7 million people visit the Eiffel every year, and much, much fewer take it by stairs. But I never have. I wanted to be one of them. If you've been to Paris, you might have never seen the Eiffel stairs. They are cleverly hidden in the sturdy legs of the tower, weaving in and out of the metal frame. They feel more like an escape exit hallway of a hotel or apartment complex. As we begin our climb, the metal steps clink under my loud boots. Nick keeps a quick pace in front of me. I know he wants this to be over with as soon as possible. He is practically running up the steps, though 30 flights of stairs is not something one can reasonably run. Despite January's cool temperature, I'm already sweating. At every intersection of the winding staircase, I want to pause. I want to stop and take in how far we've come. Read the signs that compare our current height to other famous buildings. Read about how many thousands of others have stood where we stood. I barely have time to glance at the posters as Nick works like a pace car. When I hit 10 floors, I can feel our distance from the ground. My legs are shaking. I feel unstable. I'm surprised I feel so wobbly. At 15 flights, I finally pause to let a family pass me and catch my breath. 15 flights down, the Eiffel is a glass half full. I marvel at how far we've come, but I know Nick is thinking of how much is left to go. He doesn't pause for a break. I fall a full flight of stairs behind. I want to do this with him, I think, as I continue my climb, but I also want to enjoy this at my own pace and not take it too fast. Me or him, I am always letting someone down. Maybe it's because I've been on my own for so long, so comfortable in my habits, that compromise in this relationship still feels new. There is just the slightest sway to the tower and a bit of wind whooshing my ears, and I grin, knowing Nick must be hating this. I remind myself that Nick often compromises more than me, as my determination and unshaking optimism to let's just see how this goes often wins. And it's been winning so far on this trip. We have taken rickety trains and delayed buses and packed subways and long ferries and an electric scooter around new cities. We had a nightcap at every hotel bar. We walked for nearly a mile on a chilly London Christmas Eve to find a restaurant still open so I could get a meal. And now he is climbing the Eiffel. Like any tipping point in a good workout, I feel the worst is behind me, that I found my stride. I just need to endure now, keep up my pace. Nevertheless, my lungs burn and the hangover accelerates everything. By floor 25, I feel every ache and every heavy exhalation. My heart lifts when I see the last few flights ahead. We're almost there. I pick up my pace to catch Nick and meet him at the top. The solid floor feels victorious, even with a slight sway. Nick is standing against a beam, hunched slightly, shaky, getting his breath back. He immediately asks me, how do we get down? I want to stay on the first floor deck for much longer, take in the incredible view, explore the coffee shop and bar that's smartly perched there. The bar is covered in a plastic climate-controlled dome and looks intimate and cozy, as if we are anywhere other than 1/3 up the Eiffel Tower. From up here, Paris looks like interlocking pieces of a blue and gray puzzle, streets curving and complementing one another, each arrondissement arranged as if undulating, moving to a current humming underneath the city. When I tell Nick I'd like to have a celebratory drink for making the journey, he tells me he needs to get back down before he throws up, and mutters the word selfish in there. At the opposite corner from which we entered, I see a set of stairs taking us back down to solid ground. But I pretend as if I don't, and I say, let's find the exit to buy some time. It's crowded, and we have to walk in single file down the lanes next to a tightly woven, thick fence around the handrail that Nick does not trust. I take my photos as quickly as I can. I move slowly and hold onto the handrail on the way down. Legs still shaky and heavy, still full of adrenaline. Every step down is a release, an exhale. Stepping down into the concrete feels strange, like my body is still compromising between two states at once, shaky and stable. Of course, the ground floor exits through a gift shop, and I indulge. I grab a glittery postcard that displays a shimmery golden Eiffel against fireworks. Even though it's not the tower for my climb today, I still spend the €2 on the postcard because I know my mom will like it. She will ask if the tower is just the same in person as it is in the photo. And I'll think about the muted tans of the metal, the fog obscuring everything above the second floor, the sweaty, shaky 30 flights of stairs, and I'll say, yeah, Mom, it's everything you think it'll be. All right, so that's my climb up the Eiffel. Okay, so my final essay tonight. It's short, it's new, it's something I wrote here in the house. Just thinking a little bit more of the fact that I'm returning to a place that I have lived for so long, but just in like this new way and immersing myself in like the collective of all of the residents who've lived here before. So it's just kind of like an excerpt from a longer piece I started while living here. It's called On the Road, working title. But anyway. How persistently loud the bugs are, just at sunset, on a June night in Florida. Their cacophony echoes and reverberates as they welcome in the cooler temperatures the night brings, rejoicing that another full day of scorching heat has ended. There is something intoxicating about a Florida night. That familiar, thick heat is cut by a breeze, carrying mischief. From the patio of Jack Kerouac's old house, I listened to bugs scream, telling me it's soon time to head in. Even the citronella candle on my small glass table is not enough to stop their onslaught. Their teasing of my skin, the desire to bite and nip at any little bit of exposed flesh. Sitting on that porch, I think of old desires, of biting and nipping at exposed flesh, of longings that feel relit in these warm summer nights. How many days and nights I have spent on that porch this summer, considering the girl who once called these streets of Orlando her home. How many days of heat and bugs and sweat and storms and complicated and stupid thoughts and profound thoughts and scribbling pens and loud music and dog walkers and noisy neighbors and the pilgrims. I have watched a summer pass on that porch, and I thought, how far I have traveled just to once again be in my own backyard. I think of Jack's journey ending here in Florida too, in a town an hour's drive south from my same hometown that I escaped at 18. I began reading on the road soon after moving into Jack's house. It is obvious immediately that his novel is really a series of diary entries from his own travels. He lets you know right away how he must travel the land out west, how important it is to explore. I am surprised, though, when Jack returns home in the beginning of part 2. Even Jack, the consummate traveler, knew home and felt it in his bones, calling to him. I was going home in October. Everyone goes home in October, he writes. I longed for his kind of confidence in knowing when to go home. I am always wondering when to leave or when to stay, and when I can finally feel a sense of permanence. Before this summer, I had just moved to Seattle, a charming bungalow that Jack would have loved, with my partner and my cats. Before that, I had felt so unsettled and unsure for so long, unsure in my relationship, in my dedication to a man who did not want children. I was unsure if I wanted children. I was unsure of my decision to get another MFA and pursue essay writing. In stringing together adjunct sections of English composition, I was unsure where I wanted to live, knowing it wasn't yet time to return to Florida permanently, but I wasn't particularly attached to my current home in Philadelphia. I was unsure if I felt unattached because Philadelphia felt so different from the comfortable and familiar Orlando that I know so well. Perhaps I hadn't given it a proper chance to make its impression on me. Before it's time to leave Jack's house, I spend a long Sunday afternoon reading through the guest book that contains entries written by other residents. Many of the residents leave tips for what to do in Orlando, and my heart aches at recommendations like go to iBar, Peacock Lounge, the vegan hot dog stand downtown. There is more than Jack's ghost in this house, which every single resident seems to firmly believe his ghost is here. There is the ghost of Orlando in its heyday, the vision of Orlando that I covet and hold close. It has been a sneaky joy to relieve those memories through their words. I wish I could talk to each of these past residents and ask them specific questions that only other residents in the house would think to ask. I would ask them, how did you get through the days of self-doubt and worry, those sticky feelings of routine and the occasional dread and all that aloneness? I think they would tell me to just keep going, to let yourself be all those things and lay them bare here. We have all laid ourselves bare among these walls. They would tell me to go sit on the porch and have a beer, relax. I am realizing that I have a connection now to Orlando in such a new and unique way. This experience will always be part of my Florida story now. And they too all have a Florida story. I realize then that I have not been inspired just by Jack's spirit, but by those who have lived here before me. And this, I think, is the secret I've been after. In all of my wandering and searching, I have to realize a place alone can never give me what I want. Why is this a lesson I keep forgetting? Home is found in hearts, not in places. That's the end.